Your Art Unlocked is produced by Art UK, the online home of the UK's national art collection. This podcast is supported by Bloomberg Connects, the free arts and culture platform that provides access to over 1,300 museums, galleries, and cultural spaces around the world. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
So there's so much that you can take from the prints. It's not just one subject or one theme. There's so much of life that's covered in it. With the 53 stations, you get glimpses into their lives of the tea shops and how it was to travel along the road and what life was like then. So I think they will always be popular.
The artistry around it is the artist is always in constant communication with the carver, with the printmaker, but the carver and the printmaker have a role in changing and feeling and interpreting what the image is. So that's quite a nice thing. It is not just the artist's impression. It's like a cross-pollination.
An impossibly steep cliff emerges from the edge of a deep blue lake, its ragged rock face picked out in kaleidoscopic shades of maroon, verdant green, fawn and cobalt. This colossal precipice crests like a wave, dwarfing the icy white peak of Mount Fuji far beyond. The sun is setting, with the last vestiges of light visible on the horizon. The dense tangle of forest at its base has already grown dark. When taking in this breathtaking Japanese landscape, you could easily miss the trail of minuscule figures in the bottom right of the image. They are making a perilous procession through the mountain pass. Only their large travelling hats and luggage are visible as they make the descent towards the capital of Edo, now modern-day Tokyo, at the command of their feudal lord. This print is called Hakone, 10th Post Station, and it forms part of Utagawa Hiroshige's 53 Stations of the Tokaido Road, a compendium of views produced by the artist in the 1830s, which details stops along an immense trading route connecting Tokyo to Kyoto that still exists to this day. Hiroshige's series capitalised on a craze for richly coloured prints depicting both rural and urban life, which reached its height in Japan as the country entered a new era of prosperity and unprecedented international trade. My name is Holly E.J. Black, and this is Your Art Unlocked, a podcast that brings to life some of the more unexpected objects in museum collections. Today, we're heading to Blackburn Museum and Art Gallery to take a closer look at a collection of prints that transport us to Japan's floating world, where snowy mountain peaks and crashing waves, weary travellers and alluring courtesans are all depicted through the ancient art of woodblock printing. This is your art in your museums and galleries, so let's get to know it a little better. Now, we know this is a podcast, so before we get started properly, if you want to look at this work for yourself as you listen, head to Art UK and search for Hiroshige Blackburn. That's Hiroshige. Japanese ukiyo-e, or pictures of the floating world, encompass a whole range of artistry, from painting and poetry to calligraphy and lacquerware. But the term is most closely associated with intricate, exceptionally colourful woodblock prints, conceived by the likes of master artists Hiroshige and Hokusai. The specific name for these works is nishiki-e, or brocade prints, because of their similarity with richly decorated fabric, as well as allusions to the decadent life of Edo. These prints were not only exceptionally popular, but surprisingly cheap. The average Japanese art lover could buy a single sheet for the same price as a bowl of noodles. Images were printed in their hundreds, or even thousands, and were so widespread that they were often used as packing material. So, how did hundreds of prints, including Hokusai's well-known Great Wave off Kanagawa and Hiroshige's complete Tokaido Road series, end up in a town in Lancashire? Here's Anthea Purkis, Curator of Art at Blackburn Museum and Art Gallery, to tell us more.
So there was a local businessman called Thomas Boys Lewis who passed away in 1942. During his life, he was a great lover of the classics and the arts and Japanese prints, and he built a huge private collection. He was very civic-minded and he did a lot of work around Blackburn and the local areas. So after he passed away, he had bequeathed his collection of Japanese prints to Blackburn Museum and Art Gallery. So we have The Great Wave by Hokusai, which is hugely popular with all of the visitors that we have. We also have the 53 Stations of the Tokaido Road by Hiroshige, and we've had that on display as a full set a number of times, and there's always a very popular set. The Japanese prints hang in one of our larger gallery spaces, and for our 150th birthday a couple of years ago, we reimagined the gallery. So we've kept all of the old favourites of our collections, and we just want to show them to visitors in a different light.
Boys Lewis was one of many collectors who became caught up in Japonism, a French term that describes an obsession with Japanese art, objects and aesthetics. This trend followed the forced opening of Japan's borders at around 1854. Until then, the country had remained deliberately isolated for over a century. But suddenly, these seemingly exotic objects flooded the European market and became a marker of sophisticated and worldly tastes. Artists including Vincent van Gogh, Toulouse-Lautrec and Mary Cassatt sought out Japanese prints to satisfy their curiosity and wanderlust, and so did wealthy businessmen, such as Boys Lewis. Here's Anthea again.
He had a cotton business here in Blackburn, and his family had had mills and weaving sheds. So at that time, there were a few families who lived in Blackburn who were quite wealthy. He had been to Eton and he had studied at Cambridge. So I would assume that he had some good links with people who were also interested in Japanese prints and different kinds of art.
Blackburn's collection begins with early prints by 18th century artist Suzuki Harunobu and his pupil, Isolde Korusai. Harunobu is credited with spearheading the Nishiki-e genre, thanks to his enormously popular prints of bijinga, or beautiful women. He paid particular attention to the fashions of the day, articulating the folds of a distinct fabric, the cut of a sleeve, or the nuances of an elaborately coiffed hairstyle with precision and finesse. These visions would have seemed extraordinary to someone like Boys Lewis, as would the better-known scenes of cosmopolitan and rural life, which made Hiroshige and Hokusai famous a few decades later.
You can find out more about Blackburn Museum and Art Gallery and hundreds of other collections on Bloomberg Connects, the free arts and culture platform. Download the app today.
It was not only the subjects that caught the foreign viewer's imagination, but the way these prints were made. A woodblock print takes shape by assigning individual blocks for every desired colour. They are then inked and printed onto a sheet of paper, one on top of the other. Unlike traditional European woodblock, which uses oil-based inks and a printing press, Nishiki-e are produced by hand and feature a distinct black outline or key block, which brings the whole image together with graphic precision. It's astonishing to think that these prints are so complex that they might involve 15 to 20 blocks, all of which have to be perfectly aligned. Let's hear from Adrian Holmes, a printmaker and educator based in Cornwall, who has first-hand experience of this process thanks to his training in woodblock printing in Tokyo.
The way you actually apply the pigment or the watercolour or the gouache to the block is all done by like a shoe brush, so it's quite a physical act in itself. And rather than using a roller, say in more Western traditional printmaking, you use a brush to actually adhere the pigment onto the block. So it's, I suppose, more tactile and there's a lot more finesse, I think. Hence you can create more atmosphere and gradations. The printing process with woodcut is done with a barren, which is like a circular pad. That also allows you to have more control over the areas that you want to be softer or harder. And I think it's more of a kind of dance, whereas with a Western style of printing, once you put it through the press, you've got no real oversight on what's happening.
This tactility allows for the gorgeous, subtle gradations that Nishiki-e are known for. In Blackburn Museum and Art Gallery's collection, prints such as Numazu, Mishima, and Ejiri feature seas and skies that blend from bright cerulean to cool shades of indigo. This technique was also important for showing the changing nature of the seasons, which are key aspects of the Tokaido Road series and Hokusai's series 36 Views of Mount Fuji, which includes the Great Wave. Here, the artist used nuanced shading and distinct sweeping lines to depict everything from a snow-covered temple to a violent rain shower, and the effect is visceral. Here's Anthea Purkis again, the Curator of Art at Blackburn Museum and Art Gallery.
The thing that really impresses me all the time is how they depict weather. So the way they depict the rain in a print is so simple, yet so effective. So when we can get those prints out and show people the beautiful rainbows or the struggle of the people trying to get through the wind and the rain is really well depicted. There are comedy moments as well, which is so lovely to see. So there's just lovely surprises every time we are lucky enough to look through the collection.
Collaboration is often an overlooked aspect of printmaking, but it is essential. Traditional Japanese printmaking begins with an artist or designer who conceives the image, a carver who cuts the blocks, a printer who will work on colour and the details of every impression, and a publisher who sells and distributes the final outcomes. Printmaker Adrian Holmes knows all about this firsthand.
So that idea of having someone like Hiroshige making amazing prints, absolutely, that whole thing, but it's a collaboration of different people's skills at the time, which is really nice.
So rather than simply issuing instructions, artists would be in dialogue with their carvers and printers to make sure each impression was the best it could possibly be. The expertise of these often anonymous artisans was essential to the printmaking process, particularly when it came to conveying the vitality and immediacy of an image that would have originally been conceived in brushstrokes. Translating these lines through the physical act of carving was not only gruelling, but extremely challenging, as Adrian explains.
Japanese woodcut is about intricacy, perfection, and actually it's a thing called a live line and a dead line. And when they're replicating an image, you can kill a line quite easily with your hangito. The knife is the main tool that carves all the lines and all the sections, and it's really difficult to keep a line alive. It is a methodical process, and you do need to learn the basics in kind of cutting lines, text and things, and you start very basic, and then a lot of the training is repeating the same thing, and it's quite challenging, but I really enjoy carving because it really brings you back to the basic elements of wood and tool.
One of the most brilliant things about prints is that they exist in multiples. While a singular work of art, such as a painting or sculpture, can only exist in one place, you can find the same work of art in places all across the world, albeit with subtle differences in pressure, colour and tone. Other examples by Hiroshige and Hokusai can be found, for example, in the Ashmolean, the British Museum and the V&A. Yet it's highly unusual to find such a vast selection of ukiyo-e produced by the greatest artists of the genre in a comparatively small regional museum. For Anthea, the collection is the jewel in Blackburn's crown.
I think people possibly don't expect to find such an amazing collection in Blackburn Museum. So I think if people have happened upon them by accident, it's always a happy accident. The Japanese prints are very iconic across the world, really. So currently we are rehanging a selection of the Japanese prints. We have some triptychs which have allowed us to hang them a little bit higher. We're looking at the natural world, so we're trying to reflect that in the prints that we have out, creatures of land and air and sea. So that's what we're trying to reflect. And we've also got some lovely pieces depicting costume as well. So it's hopefully a bit of something for everybody, really.
The fact that these works continue to inspire over a century after their creation, and thousands of miles from their original home, is a testament to both their unique artistry and their ability to capture a universal sense of wonder. Whether you were a local Japanese buyer from the Edo period, or a modern-day schoolchild in Blackburn, there's something wonderful to behold. Shortly before he passed away, in 1858, Hiroshige wrote a poem that alluded to the Buddhist paradise of Amida, yet it could easily be read as a portent for the ongoing popularity of his work at home and abroad. I entrust my brush to that highway heading east, and seek journey's end in the celebrated sights of a pure land in the west. Thanks for joining me, Holly E.J. Black, Blackburn curator Anthea Purkis, and printmaker Adrian Holmes, as we discovered more about the incredible Japanese prints collected by Thomas Boys Lewis. You can listen to more episodes of Your Art Unlocked wherever you get your podcasts.
Your Art Unlocked is produced by Art UK, the online home of the UK's national art collection, supported by Bloomberg Connects. Explore more art at artuk.org.